Academy Dharwad. So today we are going to discuss with the mock test 8 of what biology and mainly the botany part of it is. So we'll go ahead with respect to the questions here, right? So mainly the first question says here, that is which of the following statement is not characteristics of a growth of an organism, right? So here if you consider, it is an irreversible permanent increase in size of an organ or its part or an individual cell, they are saying. Then second option is, it is accompanied by metabolic process and it is quantitative and the intrinsic, right? So according to that, like fourth option is none of the above. So here as a growth, if I consider, growth is what actually irreversible permanent change, and that can be seen with respect to the organ and even its parts or even a particularly individual cell. So this is correct for the something called as what, the particularly growth. Then it is accompanied by the particularly metabolic process, right? Yes, as it is a cell, as a living organism, then it will definitely undergo what, metabolic process, right? Then it is a quantitative and intrinsic. Yes, it is a quantitative and intrinsic. So answer with respect to this question is what, the fourth one, right? So we'll go ahead with the next question. Match the enzyme with given in column 1 and with their functions, right, with the column 2, right? So match the following, that what we have to find out. Mainly they have mentioned here what, helicase. What helicase is going to do? Helicase is actually going to opening of the particularly what, a DNA, right? During majorly we have seen it with respect to the what, replication part of it is. Then ligases, what it can do is, it can carry out what, joining of the particularly DNA fragments, right? Here even one more option they have given, what, joining of nucleotide. You should not get confused with respect to this. They are saying here nucleotide joining and here they are saying what, the fragments joining. The fragment joining is carried by means of whom? The DNA ligases, right? Then primases is related with what, the particularly RNA priming, right? Or mainly like what, with respect to the transcription process or even replication process, there will be an attachment of what, the primer, right? So primer, and that attachment of primer is carried out what, RNA primase enzyme. Then DNA polymerase, right? So mainly DNA polymerase is going to carry out what, joining of nucleotide here, right? So it will join the what, nucleotide. Two nucleotides can be joined by means of whom, DNA polymerase. So based on that, if I consider here, the answer is nothing but what, 4, right? Here the answer is what, 4 here, right? That is what, A2, then B3 and C4 and the D1, right? So that is what the question here. The next question, reproduction cannot be considered as a defining property of a living organism, right? As statement 2 says, there are many living organisms which do not reproduce, like example mules, worker bees, etc. Yes, definitely. Reproduction we cannot consider as the particularly defining property of a particularly living organism, because we know some of the like what, the living organisms like worker bees you consider or mules you consider, they are not going to what, reproduce. So based on that, statement 1 and statement 2 are what, correct here. That is what, option 4, right? Then in a cell cycle, the DNA replication takes place in, so definitely DNA replication takes place with what, S phase. Because of that only we call S phase as what, the particularly synthetic phase or synthesis phase, right? So which actually carry out what, the particularly DNA replication here, right? So here the answer is what, actually the S phase, and this is related with respect to the what, cell cycle, right? Then next question, right, that is mainly assertion, the color of what, brown algae varies from olive green to the brown, right? They are saying. Then in brown algae, fucoxanthin is responsible for color variation, right? Then here they have given options. So based on that, if you consider the fucoxanthin, right, the sorry, with respect to the word fucoxanthin and even the particularly xanthophyll, these are the what, pigments which are actually responsible for the what color with respect to the what the particularly algae, right? As of now, with respect to that, if I consider the olive green to brown color, the variation into the color can be seen with respect to the what algae, right? So majorly like what there are different types of what pigments, and based on that different types of algae we are going to find out rhodophyceae, phaeophyceae and the particularly chlorophyceae. So based on that, if I consider here, assertion is what correct and reasons are even what the correct, and reason is actually the correct explanation of what assertion. So here the answer 4 is correct, right? Then development of leaves in air and that in water plant is as in buttercup, right? This is an example of, actually this is an example of what actually heterophyly, and heterophyly can be called as what actually the plasticity. So here the both A1 and 2 is what correct, that is what the option 4 is correct, right? Then choose the correct statement about the what liverwort, right? So as with respect to the liverwort, only what the statements are given, we have to find out which one is actually the correct one. In liverwort, the anthridium and archegonium produces the anthrazoids and the particularly egg, which fuses during what sexual reproduction. Then both male and female sex organs may be present in the thalli or a different thalli, right? Then a sporophyte is formed from the what zygote, which differentiate into what food, seta and capsule. Meiosis occurs in some cells of the capsule, giving rise to what haploid spores, right? Then the spores germinate to form what free living sporophyte. So according to this, if I consider here 1 is correct, then 2 is correct, 3 is correct and 4 is correct, but the 5 is what incorrect. That is what according to that the particularly fourth option is correct, because with respect to the liverwort, if we observe, it is going to produce a male structure with respect to the what the majorly like what the anthridium and archegonium, and which actually gives rise to what anthrazoids as well as egg during the sexual reproduction. Then the fusion will occur, then it forms a zygote. Zygote will gives rise to the what the sporophyte here. Now once the sporophyte formed, and sporophyte will get differentiated as what the capsule, seta and the particularly what we call it as the foot, right? Then with respect to the capsule only, what can occur? Meiosis occur, and meiosis will give rise to the something called as what spores, right? And that spores will generate as what again sporophyte, but they are not what actually form what free living sporophyte, right? So here the option 4 is what correct, right? Then next question, the contrasting pair of a factor in Mendelian cross are known to be, they are known to be what mainly the alleles. They are known to be the what alleles. Allele or the allomorph is a pair of what contrasting character in a Mendelian cross, right? With respect to the what Mendelian cross, this is what actually the contrasting pair of what factors, or factor means what actually genes, right? And these a pair of gene itself what we are going to call it as what allele. So according to that the option 2 is correct, right? Then which of the following is a cabbage family, right? So direct question it is. So if you consider majorly the Brassiaceae or the particularly what Cruciferaceae is what actually the cabbage family, right? Brassiaceae or the Cruciaceae is nothing but the family of what the particularly cabbage here. So option 3 is correct, right? Then evil court of biodiversity loss, right? The evil court of biodiversity loss does not include, what it does not include, it includes what habit loss, yes. Then it includes something called as what introduction of what alien species, yes. Over exploitation even includes, but it won't include something called as what haunting, right? So haunting is not included with respect to the evil quartet of biodiversity loss. That is what option 4 is correct here, right? Then assertion based on that ginger is a modification of what stem, right? Then ginger is modified to store food, right? So based on that, if I consider here the particularly both like assertion and reasons are correct, but reason is not actually the correct explanation of what assertion, right? Ginger is definitely a modification of what stem, because it has what nodes and internodes with them. Then ginger is modified to store food, right, which is actually not related with respect to the what assertion. Both the statements are what correct, right, and is not actually, reason is not the particularly correct explanation of what assertion here. So option 1 is correct. Then the correct sequence of what Kelvin cycle. In Kelvin cycle what can happen? So if you consider in Kelvin cycle, if I consider there is what the ribulose, right, 1,6 or 1,5 bisphosphate, right, 1,5 bisphosphate, which will undergo what the particularly carboxylation by means of with respect to the enzyme, and it will form what the particularly two molecules of PGA, phosphoglyceric acid. Then phosphoglyceric acid will undergo what reduction by means of utilizing 2 ATP and 2 NADPH and form something called as what a triose phosphate. Here mainly triose phosphate is an intermediate product, and that is what the phosphoglyceride, right? Phosphoglyceride, that itself is a what we call it as triose phosphate. Then there will be what something called as what regeneration. Regeneration of what the particularly molecule can take place, right? So according to this, which is the correct sequence? First it should be what carboxylation, second should be what reduction, and third should be what the regeneration, and there the option is what here 4, right? The correct sequence of what Kelvin cycle what they are asking, right? Then consider the following statement: an ecosystem is a functional unit of what nature, right? Then based on that, if I consider majorly like what an ecosystem is a functional unit of what nature and comprises abiotic and biotic component. Then abiotic components are organic material. Biotic components are what produces, consumes and decomposes. Energy flow is bidirectional. So according to this, if I consider the first option is what actually correct, as which two statements are correct regarding this. That is what an ecosystem is a functional unit of nature and comprises what abiotic and biotic component. Then the particularly biotic components are producer and consumers and decomposers. That is what, based on that, if you consider the fourth option is what correct, right? Then moving ahead to the next question: which of the following is a sunflower family? It is even direct question. If you consider sunflower family, that is nothing but what the Compositae. Compositae family is, sunflower family is what Compositae here, right? Then which of the following is not the characteristics of what life, right? Which of the following is not a characteristics of what life here, right? So according to that, if I consider the characteristics of life includes what responsiveness to the what environment, then environmental conditions, reproduction, all those activities are what actually inculcated with respect to the what the characteristics of what life. So here if you consider the here reproduction is with respect to the what the characteristics of life, then complex chemical organization that can be seen, adaptation to the environmental changes that even can be seen, differentiation from cells to tissues. This is not we are going to include with respect to the what characteristics of what life, right? It is a character of what actually the cell, right? So definitely differentiation from cell to tissue is not included with respect to the what characteristics of what life here, right? Then next, that is what the mainly assertion: aneuploidy may be of what hypoploidy or hyperploidy, gain type, right? Then reason: monosomy lacks one pair of what chromosomes, that is what we are going to find out, X not a type usually, which is related with Turner syndrome. So here if I consider both assertion and reasons are correct, but reason is not actually the correct explanation of what this included when I compare the reason and assertion is not actually the correct explanation of what assertion here. So here the option 1 is correct, right? Then moving on to the next question: photorespiration. What is actually photorespiration? occurs because oxygen rather than the carbon dioxide link to the what ribosco enzyme in the what particularly Kelvin cycle, occurs in what C4 than in C3 plants under the identical conditions. Describe the uptake of what CO2 and the particularly release of oxygen in chloroplast. All of the above, right? So majorly if you consider the particularly photorespiration can takes place with respect to the what C3 plants, right? What are these C3 plants? These C3 plants is going to form 3 carbon compound PGA, right? That is what phosphoglyceric acid, right? Because of that only we call it as what C3 plant. And here majorly to convert this, which cycle can occur? The particularly what Kelvin cycle, right? So majorly with respect to the C3 plant only what can take place? The photorespiration can take place, not with respect to the what the C4 plants. So according to that, if you consider this occurs in C4 plant, what they are saying, that is what actually wrong here, right? Then describe the what uptake of CO2. No, because photorespiration is uptake of what oxygen instead of what carbon dioxide, right? So this is what even wrong. So which one is actually correct? Occurs because oxygen rather than the carbon dioxide linked to the what ribosco enzyme in the what Kelvin cycle. So here the option 1 is what correct, right? Then match the column 1 with the column 2 and choose the what correct option, right? So based on that we have to match the column 1 with the column 2 here, right? So here what I am going to find out, that is what statin. Statin majorly can be produced as what? The blood cholesterol lowering agent. Statins are what? Blood cholesterol lowering agents. Then ethanol. Ethanol, what it can generate? Ethanol can be generated by means of whom? Yeast. Then dung. Dung is related with respect to the what? The biogas, right? So dung is related with respect to the biogas. Then cyclosporin is related with what? The trichoderma polyporum, or mainly that is trichoderma polysporum, right? So that is what. So based on that, if I match, the option 1 is what actually correct here, right? Then DNA is not present in, the DNA is not present in, that what we have to find out. So majorly in nucleus we will find out its own DNA. Even in chloroplast we will find out its own DNA, because these are the even mitochondria, there also we will find out the DNA, right? Mainly chloroplast and mitochondria are double membrane bounded organelles, and those will have its own specialized what we call it as DNA, right? Because those plays very important role in metabolic processes, right? So majorly DNA is not present in what? Ribosomes, right? So here option 1 is what correct, right? Then statement 1, the regeneration of a parts grazed by the what herbivorous in the grass is by the activity of what? Apical meristem, right? Then they are saying that is nothing but what? The particularly statement 2, the cells of what? Parenchyma are generally isodiameter, right? So according to that, if I consider here, the particularly statement 1 is incorrect, but the statement 2 is correct. The reason for intercalary meristem occurs in the particularly grasses and regenerate parts removed by the what? Grazing herbivores. Parenchyma cells are what? Basically isodermis, right? So the grazing animals majorly intercalary meristem, that itself what actually can be eaten with respect to the what? The herbivores. So based on that, what? Statement 1 is incorrect, and but the statement 2 is correct, right? So that is what option 3 is correct. Then which of the following, which one of the among the following was the first genetic material? So first genetic material here is, that is nothing but what? RNA, right? So scientists concluded first genetic material is what? RNA. Before that, even when there was a evolutionary concept, they thought of what? Protein as a genetic material, but later they got realized what? RNA as a what? Actually the first genetic material. But then they finalized that what? Which is actually best and known as a what? The best genetic material, that is nothing but what? DNA. But as of the question, That is what the first genetic material is nothing but what RNA here. So answer 2 is correct, right? Then match the column 1 with the column 2 and choose the what correct combination from the option given below. Alright. So we have to find out what match the column here, right? So according to the column, right, what we have to find out, inner mitochondrial pyruvic acid is cytoplasm, mitochondrial matrix, what they are saying. So inner mitochondrial, if I consider, so here what is going to happen, the ETS converted into what, CO2 and ethanol. So that what I am going to find out, the second one, right? Then B, you consider pyruvic acid is the fermentation, right? It is related with respect to the what, the particularly fermentation. Then cytoplasm is related with respect to the what here, the mainly glycolysis. And mitochondrial matrix, that is what, the Krebs cycle membrane. So there you are going to find out actually the formation of Krebs cycle. So here according to this, the option 4 is correct, right? Then organism of which of the following kingdom do not have a nuclear membrane, right? Which do not have a nuclear membrane here? The Protista, fungi, Monera, plantae, right? Protista, fungi, plantae, these all of them are what, eukaryotic, right? Then definitely these three of them will have a what, a nuclear membrane, but Monera doesn't have a nuclear membrane, so only we call them as what, the particularly prokaryotic here, right? So based on that, option 3 is what, correct, right? Then the next question, that is what, which of the following statements are correct about the what, phloem they are asking. So based on that, we have to find out which one is actually the correct for the phloem, right? The phloem transports the food material usually from the leaves to the what, other part of the plant. Yes, it is going to carry out what, transport the food material. Because of that only phloem can be considered as what, the food transporting element. Alright. Then it is composed of what, sieve tube element, companion cells, phloem parenchyma and phloem fibers. Yes, it is consist of that, right, mainly. Then you consider the companion cells are specialized parenchyma cells which are closely associated with the phloem parenchyma, right? So this statement is what, wrong here. Then the first formed primary phloem consists of what, narrow sieve tube and referred to as what, protophlloem, and later formed phloem has a bigger sieve tubes and referred to as metaphlloem. Yes, this is what even correct. So based on this, option 1 is correct here, right? So that is what we have to find out, right? Then statement here says again, statement if you consider the primary endosperm cell and develop into the what, endosperm, the primary endosperm cell and develops into the what, endosperm, the zygote develops into embryo. Here both the statements are what, the particularly correct, right? So as we know, the primary endosperm, it is a result of something called as what, a triple fusion, which will develop into something called as what, the endosperm here. Then either it will be a nuclear endosperm or it will be a cellular form of endosperm. But the zygote develops into the what, actually embryo, right? So embryonic development can be seen with respect to the what, zygote, because zygote will undergo what, mitosis, right? And that then it will lead. So here the both the statement 1 and statement 2 are correct, right? Then in anaphase of mitosis, mitosis, majorly chromosomes get arranged in middle of the what, particularly cell, right? Yes. Then the nuclear envelope what, disappears, chromosome fibers become clear, chromosomes aggregate at what, opposite poles to form a daughter nuclei, right? So according to this, mainly here they are asking in anaphase of what, mitosis, this will takes place with respect to the what, metaphase, right? The disappearing will takes place with respect to the what, mainly the prophase, and the chromosome fibers became clear, that can be seen up with respect to the what, mainly metaphase again. Then the chromosome aggregated to the what, opposite poles to form a daughter nuclei, that is nothing but what, with respect to the of what, mitosis. So here option 4 is correct, right? Then match the following again, right? So population they have given, and population based what we have to find out the examples, the predation, mutualism, and the particularly parasitism and competition. So based on that, what we have to find out example based, right? So mainly predation is related with respect to the what pestes, right? Then mutualism is related with respect to the what the mycorrhiza, and parasitism is related with respect to the cuscuta and the hedge plant, right? Then competition is related with respect to the something called as what balanus and the cathamalus, right? So here according to this the option 2 is what correct. So match the particularly column 1 with the column 2, right? Then next question, which one of the following is not considered as the part of what the endomembrane system, right? Part of what endomembrane system, they are not considered here. So they have mentioned here what the Golgi apparatus and the particularly peroxisomes, vacuoles, and the particularly lysosomes. So endomembrane system is not considered as a part of what endomembrane system. So based on this, endomembrane system includes endoplasmic reticulum. It includes what endoplasmic reticulum IR. Then it includes what the Golgi complex, right? So here what I am finding out the particularly the Golgi complex, right? Then again I am seeing what the lysosomes, right? And again we are seeing something called as what vacuoles. So these are known to be the what actually endomembrane system. Endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi complex, lysosomes, and vacuoles. These all are what actually related with respect to the what endomembrane system, leaving the particularly what peroxisomes. So here option 2 is correct, right? Then in mitochondria, proton accumulate in mitochondria, proton majorly it will get accumulate with respect to the what intermembrane space, right? It is the proton accumulation you can find out with respect to the mitochondria. Here that is what the intermembrane space, there will be the what accumulation of what proton, right? So that what we are going to find out what intermembrane space is an what correct option with respect to the proton gradient accumulation, right? Then you consider here match the column 1 and what column 2 here again, right? So according to that, if I consider here majorly ABO blood group is related with multiple allism, base pairs of substitution, monohybrid, dihybrid. So ABO blood group is related with what multiple allelism. Then law of segregation is related with respect to the what here monohybrid cross. Law of independent assortment is related with the dihybrid cross. Gene mutation is related with what base pair substitution. So based on this simple matching, that is what the option 3 is what correct here, right? Then option, okay, right? So next question, that is what statement 1, right, which is actually related with what the meiosis involves pairing of what homologous chromosome and the recombination between them. Meiosis involves two sequential cycle of what nuclear and cell division called as meiosis 1 and meiosis 2, but only a single cycle of what DNA replication can takes place. So according to that, here both the statement are what correct, right? So meiosis involves what pairing of what homologous chromosomes, and even there will be what recombination. Mainly it is going to take place with respect to the what prophase 1 of what meiosis 1, right? Then the meiosis 2 involves what, yes, two sequential nuclear and what cytoplasmic division. So there what meiosis 1 and meiosis 2 what we call it as, but only a single replication is going to take place. So that is sure. So here what statement 1 and statement 2 are correct, right? Then synapses occurs between, right? So majorly synapses occur between what the majorly here the two homologous chromosomes, right? So synaptial complex, that is with respect to the word meiosis 1 only. Majorly it will begin with respect to the word zygote and continuous with respect to the word pachytene. There actually the recombination can takes place. That is what there, the two homologous chromosome that itself will get what overlapped with each other to lead into the what synaptial complex or formation of synapses. Then next question, that is what assertion. So based on that, if I consider here majorly the assertion, what it says, in a food chain, member of what successive higher levels are fewer in number. The number of what organisms at any tropical level depends upon the availability of what organism which serve as what food at higher level. So based on that, if I consider here, the A is correct but R is not correct, right? So number of organism at any tropical level depend on upon the availability of what organism which serve as what food at a what higher level, right? So that is what actually wrong when it comes to the what reason. When the food is made available, automatically the next higher level is the hierarchy should what increase. When food is available, then definitely who is going to increase? Higher level food is going to what increase. So based on that, here the option 2 is correct, right? Then chemical which is translocated to the other parts for what acceleration of what abscission in flower is, right? The chemical, major chemical which is nothing but what to carry out the abscission or accelerate the particularly abscission, which is nothing but what here ethephion, right? Because gibberellins and cytokines, these are the phytohormones, and ethephion is what the chemical substance which can make the plant to produce what more ethylene. So there the particularly option 1 is what correct, right? Then next question, which of the following statement is not correct for what the two genes, and that shows a 50% of what recombinase frequency. So that what we have to find out here. Majorly the genes are what tightly linked, right? Which of the following statement is not correct for the two genes that shows 50% recombination? So with respect to these statements, we have to find out either it is showing me 50% recombination or no. The genes are tightly linked, mainly what here linkage is high. Then linkage is high means what, definitely there will not be what a 50% of what recombination. So this statement is wrong. Then the gene shows independent assortment. Yes, here I am going to find out what the separation, right, with respect to the what independent assortment. So related with respect to the what 50% of recombination. Then if the genes are what present on the what same chromosome, they undergo more than one crossover in every meiosis. Then the gene may be on what different chromosomes. So according to this, if you consider, only one is what actually incorrect regarding what when it comes to the recombination frequency, right? The next question, that is what Chargaff's rule. Majorly rules are what applicable to single stranded RNA, single stranded DNA and RNA, then single stranded DNA and double stranded DNA. So Chargaff's rule mainly applies with what double stranded DNA, because what Chargaff says, that is purine is equal to pyrimidine here, right? And which are those purines and pyrimidines? Adenine and guanine are the purines, and the particularly cytosine, thymine and uracil are the particularly what pyrimidines here. So according to that, option 4 is what correct, right? Then next question, match the column with the column 2 and select the particularly what correct options. So that what we have to find out, right? Then here the match the column we have to find out. So according to that, the RER, that is what endoplasmic rough endoplasmic reticulum, that mainly carries what the protein synthesis and secretion, right? Then cell wall, consider cell wall majorly carries what provide the structural support to the what cell. Then flagella, if you consider, responsible for the what movement. Then lysosome, it is related with respect to the what intracellular and extracellular digestion, right? So according to that, if we consider, the option 1 is correct here, right? Then the next question, that is what the majorly here what we are finding out, the chemical responsible for blotting. So already we have discussed in previous question also, the chemical which is responsible for blotting is nothing but what, gibberellin, right? So gibberellin itself is going to carry out what? Blotting here, right? Then here assertion says what? Each tropic level has a certain mass of what? Living material at a particular time, called as what? The standing crop, right? Then the statement 2 says what, or reason says what? The standing crop is measured as the mass of what? Living organism, that is what? Biomass, or the number in the particularly unit area. So based on that, if I consider here, both assertion and reasons are correct, but reason is not actually the correct explanation with respect to the what? Assertion. So according to this question, the option 1 is what? Correct, right? Then fermentation takes place. So fermentation takes place under what? Anaerobic condition in many prokaryotic and unicellular eukaryotes. Under aerobic conditions in many prokaryotic and unicellular. So fermentation won't take place in aerobic conditions. Then under anaerobic condition in all prokaryotic and unicellular eukaryotic. So this is not even possible. Not all they are going to carry out what? The fermentation, right? And fermentation is majorly the result of what? Anaerobic respiration. So here the under aerobic condition in all prokaryotic and unicellular eukaryotic. This is also what? Wrong. So according to this, the particularly 1 is what? Correct. So with respect to the anaerobic or less presence of what? The particularly oxygen, there itself what? It can take place. So option 1 is what? Correct, right? Then here the given statement are the some characters of a particular group of what? Kingdom Protista, right? And we have to find out which is actually related to that, alright? So related to that, if I consider, most of them are what? Freshwater organism found in a standing water. They have a protein rich layer called as what? The pellicle, which make their what? Body flexible. They have what? Two flagellas, a short and a long one. Though they are what? Photosynthetic in presence of what? Light, but in absence of what? Light, they behave like a what? Heterotroph, by predating on the other smaller organisms. So according to that, this major character, that is what? They behave as what? Photosynthetic when there is a presence of what? Light. When there is an absence of light, they behave as a what? Predator. This is one statement is like what we can correlate with whom? What? Actually euglenoid. So here euglenoid is an answer. So remaining all of them, pellicle formation, that even can be seen with respect to the whom? The euglenoid itself. So option 4 is what? Correct, right? Then again the match the particularly names of structure given in column 1 with respect to the what? Function given in column 2, right? And based on that, we have to find out actually the match, right? So according to that, if I consider stomata majorly carries out what? Transpiration here, right? Then bark is nothing but what? Protection of what? Stem here. Cambium, if I consider, it is related with what? The secondary growth. Then the particularly cuticle is nothing but what? It prevents the loss of what? Water. So according to that, if I consider, the option 4 is what? Correct here, right? Then examine the figure given below and select the what? Right option, and giving what? All the what? Particularly 4 parts. So 4 parts they have mentioned, 1, 2, 3 and 4, right? So little this is not clear, but what? Still we try to find out the particularly answer here. So first one, if I consider, this is nothing but known to be the archegoniospore, right? What it is? Archegoniospore. Then the particularly second is what? The female thallus, right? So mainly which is related with bryophytes, right? Then you consider gamma cups, right? Gamma cup. And then lastly, root like structure, what I am finding out, that is nothing but what? Rhizoids here. So according to that, the option 1 is what? Correct, right? Then assertion here, lactose is the what? Substrate for the what? Enzyme beta galactosidase, and it regulates the switching on and switch off the particularly what? Operon. Hence it is termed as an inducer, right? Then the repressor of the particularly operon is synthesized from the I gene, and a repressor protein binds to the operator region of the operon and prevents the RNA polymerase from what? Transcribing the particularly operon, right? So here what we should remember, here the operon is itself is nothing but what? Structural gene, and they are talking regarding what the lac operon, right? So lac operon means here the substrate is nothing but the lactose itself. So according to that, if I consider here, both assertion and reasons are correct, but actually reason is not actually correct or correlated. It is correlated, but it is not actually the correct explanation of what the assertion. So here option 1 is what correct, right? Then the next question, that is nothing but what, again here match the following what they have mentioned, right? So we have to find out here. So Nile perch in Lake Victoria is related with respect to the whom, the particularly alien species, right? Then narrowly utilitarian is obvious reasons for the what, biodiversity conservation, right? Then a main cause for the biodiversity, what, biodiversity here, that can be seen with respect to the what, habitat destruction, right? Then the particularly hotspot that is related with what, high endemism loss, right? So according to that, if I consider, the option 2 is what correct here, right? So this is all about what the botany part of what mock test 8, right? So please do prepare for your NEET examination and do well with respect to the examination. So at present, thank you so much. Please do subscribe our channel and like and share and hit the bell icon.